From the CBW Radio UK studios in Chelmsford, this is Off the Record with Big C and his trusty companion, Stinky Pete.
Hello, this is Big C, and we do have the returning Stinky Pete to the
You
off
do
the record,
indeed have the returning Stinky
studios. Well, in the Edlesborough studios.
I is here, in it, blood.
You is here, innit? Yeah, sure. Right, I'm just going to repost that on Twitter. So we're going live, streaming live to Facebook, as per usual, on the Off the Record Facebook page. Also live on Twitter or X. We are X-greeting onto X with this particular podcast, and yeah.
Are we excited?
We are excited. We are very excited. We're also on YouTube. That's the Real CBW Productions channel. If you want to look it on YouTube, you can check us out there.
I shall subscribe.
You could, yeah. Add
I
the
shall.
subscriptions, yeah. This is Off the Record. This is episode 16, series 6, and overall episode 156. Welcome, one and all, and to if you're watching on whatever you're watching on, and welcome to Stinky Pete. He's been away for a couple of weeks.
I have.
I mean, to be fair, we had Neil on last week. We had your younger brother, Jeff, on Jazzy Jeff on, who is likable. He's funny. He's entertaining.
Oh,
He's
don't
got
tell him
good
that,
taste,
for heaven's sake. You'll be a
good
pain
taste in
the arse at
music.
Christmas.
Good taste in music and everything. I mean, you
it.
like chalk and cheese, you two guys. No.
Yes, we are. He's shorter
Right.
than me and has less hair. Anyway,
Yes.
there we go.
Anyway, yeah. So, what have you been up to then? You've been away.
I had a few days holiday the week before last, staying at my mate's down in London, which was nice because I've got no work thanks to the President of the United States currently. So I decided to have a few days holiday. So I went wandering around Portobello Road Market, had a couple of nice meals out in the pub, watched a few things on the TV, generally chilled out. And then last week I was in Utrecht and Amsterdam. Well, and Leerdam and various other places in Holland, but that was for
the
work.
Netherlands. Yes, yeah. I remember you did text me to say you're in Utrecht when you're over there.
Yeah, no, I like Holland. It's apart from Italy, which I love because of the climate and the food. Holland I could live in very, very easily. It's basically England, but with taller people and more water.
And it's very flat.
It is very flat, but pleasantly so.
Full of dikes. Full of dikes and bikes, in fact.
Yes, yeah, the bikes thing doesn't work, not being a bike rider. That's a bit of a nightmare. No. But the other upside is, of course, because it's all flat, then at our age, you don't get knackered walking uphill, so you can walk further. So from an exercise point of view, Holland is great. I'm a big fan.
I think if I go to San Francisco again, I would die. I mean, those hills are just ludicrous.
Oh, I know, they're mental. There's a few places like that. Was it Liège in Belgium? That's got a ridiculous hill you have to walk up to go places. And all these places with stupid steps. No, stuff that for a game of soldiers. So, sorry, I was just putting my phone on mute. Yeah, so all in all, but I'm back now with a vengeance. And I have done homework.
Done homework? Well, that's good. Excellent.
You'll be impressed.
And what are we talking about? Well, what about Spurs? What are we doing?
Well,
hit and miss, isn't it still?
It's going to be hit and miss till the end of the season, basically.
And I mean, if he loses tomorrow night, he could be in trouble.
Well,
who knows?
If we lose tomorrow night, it'll be like the rest of the season, won't it? Hopes and expectations, and then being very Spurs.
And thinking, there's always next year.
The good news is that as a result of us drawing on the weekend and Manchester United only drawing, they're still behind us. So of the big six, quote unquote, they're even more shit than we are.
Well, that's bad, isn't it? When they're below us, and we've been so well. They have been poor. They've
been terrible. I mean, they've been so terrible. We've beaten them 3 times.
We have indeed.
So they must be bad.
Dreadful stuff. Dreadful stuff.
It's
But
not good.
one day it'll pick up for us, I'm sure. I don't
How
know
long
when.
have we been? How long have we been saying that, Colin?
Well, we won the league in
1961.
61.
And when were you born?
61. And what? Sorry.
And when were you born?
I was born. Oh, that's in my lifetime, believe it or not. I know it's in yours, but yeah, it's in my lifetime. So I can actually say we did actually win the league. Not only did we win the league, but of course we were the first team
To win the double.
to win the double. So the league
And
and
the
FA.
first team to win a European trophy.
The first English team, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. The first British team was Celtic, I think.
No. They won in 67. We won in 60, whatever it was, 2 or 3. No, we were the first team to win a European trophy, not the Champions League.
Maybe it was. Maybe it's the league. Yeah, maybe European Cup. I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh,
So a lot of firsts, and right now we're first for being really crap as a big team. We're right at the top of the pile for that, class leading.
It is really inexplicable, some of our performances, but it's so easy just to blame the manager. I know.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
We've had different managers. We've had different players.
And there's
I know people are going to say, yeah, but it's the same owners. But it hasn't been the same owners beyond like the 20th, the 21st century. I mean,
we were crap under Alan Sugar. We were,
we were.
we were crap under Irving Scholar. I mean, no, don't go there.
Should we not get depressed and talk football?
No, let's not talk about football. Let's talk
music. We'll talk music, as is our want on Off the Record, and we've done a series of the alphabetical series, as we like to call it, for obvious reasons. We're looking at albums beginning with certain letters, and we're working through the alphabet, and heaven knows what's going to happen when we get to X or Z. Y might not be so tricky. I don't know. I haven't even thought about that.
What we're going to find is that we're going to do X and Z together.
Okay.
And we're still going to struggle.
We'll still struggle, yeah. I'm going to say it'll be a short podcast that night.
It'll be a very short podcast. We might actually, what I was thinking was, though, what we could do is X, Z, and numbers.
Oh, that's a good point.
You see, I've done thinking.
One.
I was strategizing.
Because we haven't included, as we won't today, we're doing the letter G. So albums beginning with the letter G. We don't do compilation albums unless one sneaked in that you've put in the.
Well, no, sorry. No. That's not what we said. What we said was we don't do greatest hits albums.
Well,
greatest hits albums and compilation albums are different. I will die on this hill because if you remember when we did the D's, I had "Der for Decade" by Neil Young, which was a compilation album including a couple of tracks that were previously unreleased.
All right, okay. I hear what you're saying. There is slightly different in that, but sometimes you have a greatest hits album and you get a new track on there as well. I probably said to you on that podcast that's a bit of a cheat.
But well, that's fine because I've got to cheat. I've got to cheat in this one, so that's right.
I'm sure you have. And you've got 10. You haven't got 10 greatest hits, that's for sure.
No, well, I've got about 40 greatest hits. I know none of them are in this list. But no, in fairness, I did say right from the start when we said we were going to do this series, I said yes, but I am not going to just choose albums beginning with the letter. I'm going to choose albums beginning with the letter that I own, because otherwise there's no point. So
yes and no. Yeah, I hear. I know that's exactly what you're doing. But on the other hand, if you do spread it out a little bit, it's not often the same albums that would.
No, but the problem is that if you spread it out that way, then I'm talking about albums I don't really know, and I don't understand. I don't see the point of that. So,
okay,
I'm sticking with my plan, and I've got to tell you, I'm very excited about H.
Are you really? I'm sure you are.
I
haven't even thought about H.
I'm massively excited about H whenever we get to it, because I did a bit of a pre-run on the H's today, and there's some crackers.
I'm just looking forward to that. I can think of one off the top of my head. You can probably think. But yeah, okay. The one thing we're not ever going to do is a H. That's for sure.
No, we're not. We're absolutely
because I believe we should be taken off air if we use H as the way to pronounce the letter.
Absolutely. And anyone who says hotel rather than hotel also needs taking out and slapping.
Hotel is okay, is it?
I'm joking. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
staying.
right, okay.
I'm staying at, but it's
it
not
probably
an
is
hotel.
an hotel.
It's an hotel.
Yeah, okay. No one talks properly these days, though. And
No,
as my son Josh would say, it's only words.
No, he's wrong.
I know he's wrong. He never is wrong, though.
Tell him to pull himself together. Ridiculous behaviour. Anyway,
Right.
there we go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about G albums.
G albums. So obviously you struggled. If you only had 9 albums and you
I've got 10. I found a 10.
Yeah, but you only had 9 the other day, and now you've added
I only
another
had
one.
9 the other day, and then I found one by accident. Because what happened was I've had a really stressful day, and I decided, and I've just got an email which is now making me really stressed for tomorrow. But anyway, that's another story. So I had a really stressful day, and I thought what I need is a bit of really laid back kind of bluesy or jazzy stuff to listen to while I cook my tea. And I was circling around in my CD rack looking for some Anna Popovich, and then I just spied a little section, and I thought, oh, I should listen to that. Not only shall I listen to that, it's a G album. So I added it to my list.
I would have thought your albums were filed in an alphabetical order.
They are alphabetical, except that they're also alphabetical by genre. So I've got all of the rock stuff, then I've got my pop bits and my soundtracks and my jazz and
all right
separate sections. Obviously, they're folded,
mine,
just like yours.
Mine are, yeah, you can see them.
Actually, you can see
all over the place. You can't luckily see what's
but the good news is I know exactly what happened. Yours was filed dyslexic, was filed alphabetically by dyslexic.
That's the one. That's the one indeed. Right. All right. So G albums. You think there's probably a few that we both got. So should we go? Should we go for one of those straight off the bat? Because I'm sure that you will have this one, which is from '73, a double album.
Yes.
It's not Yes. No.
That's fine. No,
first mention of yesterday.
Yes, I have got the same album.
Goodbye,
Yellow Brick Road. Yes.
Double album, and I think we're both in agreement. His best collection.
Yeah.
His best release, his best album release from his best decade, and superb stuff. And his 7th studio album.
Indeed.
Other double albums, I think, isn't it? I think Blue Moves was a double album, but he'd gone off the boil a little bit by then.
I stopped listening after Don't Shoot Me on the Piano Player. So,
that's a shame because Goodbye Yellow Brick
Road came after it. No, so what comes after Goodbye Yellow Brick Road? I can't remember.
Caribou.
Caribou, yeah, and then after that it was this all.
Caribou. Gone.
Caribou on the lawn. Gone. Sorry, lapsed into Monty Python there.
That is a bit of
put yourself together.
Monty Python. I think I've got that clip somewhere. I might have to put it on tomorrow.
You should do.
Gone.
Awfully woody.
Oh, very woody. Woody word.
Woody, very woody word.
No, nothing tinny. Didn't like the word tinny to start screaming. Right. No one knows what the hell we're talking about.
No, so, but we're having fun and it's our podcast, so who cares?
Nothing new. Goodbye Olympic Road. Yeah, what's good about it? I mean, it is... I mean, the opening track is the pièce de résistance for me, and probably for you as well.
I think Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, all joking aside, would stand up against any piece of popular music ever written. I think if you had a list of, what are the greatest pieces of popular music of all time, your top 100, that's going to be in there above the top half. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of work. And I would buy the album just for that track to listen to it on vinyl because it is so good.
Yeah, I had it on vinyl. I probably got it on vinyl. In fact, I think I got it twice on vinyl. I got it in the loft because when the original one I got, and then a few years back I decided, everyone's getting vinyl again now. I'm gonna get some vinyls, crisp. What's the word?
Pristine.
Brand sparkling new, pristine. That's the word I'm looking for. Brand new versions of them, and of course I haven't used any of them, but that was one of them. I just got like, I don't know, a dozen albums that I think, yeah, these are classic albums. And some of them I already had before. I mean, Goodbye Luke was on Hotel California, I think it was on Bridge Over Troubled Water. There's a few like that. But good, yeah, Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, superb. Like instrumental piece, it's a very prog-like, isn't it? At
It
the
is.
start of it, Funeral for a Friend part of it, in
Um,
fact.
The one thing I would say, and I listened to it again while I was doing my research, I've listened to a lot of these albums. Um, and I think it's actually quite like Physical Graffiti by Led Zepp, not in terms of the sound, but in terms of the fact that if they'd been clever with the tracks, it could have been a single album, not a
Wow.
double.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is because when I went through the stuff that I really like, there's one, two, three, there's 5 tracks that I absolutely love off the first album, and only 4 off the second, and there's only 1 track on side 3. So for me, the first album, sides 1 and 2, is much better than sides 3 and 4, in my opinion.
I
But
think, yeah, I think I concur overall that the first 2 sides are better than the second 2. But there are significantly good songs on the other 2, on the other album
there
as
are,
well.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there was a single from the yeah, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting is on there.
Yeah, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting,
Good
and
rock tune.
I really like Your Sister Can't Twist.
Yeah, another rock and roll tune.
Yeah, and then on side 3, the only track I really like is Sweet Painted Lady, and that's a beautiful song.
Sweet Painted Lady, yeah, I quite like Ballad of Danny Bailey, and
It's all right.
yeah, I mean, okay, you're probably right. I think, but could you not say that about all double albums on the whole?
You probably could, and I
I
think
mean,
this is a conversation we've had many times.
so we
So
won't have that again then.
no, but I mean, I think that the more you listen to double albums, I was thinking about this earlier. I don't think it applies to double live albums, because the whole point of a double live album is that it's basically a greatest hit set played live. So almost by default, you don't get a bad double. You don't get a bad double live album. But I think when it's a studio album, unless they're absolutely at the peak of their powers, then it's inevitable that there'll be a few songs which are quote unquote filler, just to, just so that people don't feel cheated. Because the problem with a double album is that you've probably got 3 sides of decent material, but not enough for a 4th. But you've got to fill it with something. So I think there's a few tracks which are filler, and I think that's the case on.
I think, yeah, probably all right. But I mean, I'm looking at the other ones on there. Yeah, Roy Rogers. Actually, the last track, Harmony, was meant to be issued as a single. It never was. I mean, that would have been the what? Candle in the Wind, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Benny and the Jets.
Yeah, well, yeah, and well, Benny and the Jets, yeah, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. So it would have been the 4th or 5th. Yeah, Benny and the Jets was released as a single in the States, and it got to number 1 over there. But they all got to number 1 over there, I think. It wasn't over here. They chose Candle in the Wind, and
Right.
it was the B side of Candle in the Wind.
But I mean,
Eventually, it
Candle in the
made the
Wind.
chart a few years later.
If you talk to people who don't really know the music from our generation, everybody knows Candle in the Wind because of the association with Princess Diana's funeral.
Yes.
So I think it was a good choice in the UK, and that was proven by what happened much later. And then of course on side 2 you've got Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which is again is right up there almost with Funeral for a Friend.
I love that track. Yeah, I think it was just Slim Nick. Well, he didn't mind Elton John, but for some reason I remember him saying he didn't like that track. He hated Goodbye Luke Road. Oh, it's weird. Don't know what that was all about. But yeah, I love it.
And then the other one I've got on that side, I've seen that movie too, which I quite like as well.
In that movie too, Grey Seal. Actually, the whole of this song has no title, which presumably is because the song they couldn't work out the title for it. Grey Seal was a sort of updated version of an earlier track on either Elton John or Empty. What was his second album? No, the First album wasn't Empty Sky, the first album, and Elton John was the second album. I think it was on one of those actually. But also on that side, you've got Jamaica Jerk Off, it's a nice little reggae thing that's on there. That's all right.
Which again,
You're not going to, walk over coals to get to hear it, but
no. But in the same way that I'm not a big fan of Jamaica by Led Zepp, I don't. Well, it's okay. What I'm saying is, and Jamaica Jerk Off is okay, but I would, if I'm going to listen to reggae, I'd rather listen to Bob Marley or proper reggae. So I don't really like reggae'd up songs particularly. Anyway, that's personal choice. But yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, okay. I think we both agree. Goodbye the Big Road. We had to. Might as well throw that one in right away off the bat.
Right. Well, so before we go in, I think there's one other which we probably have both got because you played a track off it this morning and referenced it on the show. And so you might be giving something away.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
Well, if you didn't include it, that's fine. I'll come to it later.
Well, no, I've got it down as one of my. I've got more than 10 down here anyway. I've probably got about 12 or 13. And I thought, well, I'll make a note of this one because I'm sure you'll have it. And maybe your brother had it on as well as one of his.
Well, it's one of his favourite albums. So
in that case, you probably would. And we are talking Graceland,
1986, Mr. Paul Simon.
Paul Simon, yeah. In fact, Jazzy Jeff, your brother, has requested a track from that for tomorrow, but a sort of just a solo vocal and isolated bass version of Diamonds on the Soles of His Shoes, which sounds pretty decent. But Graceland, yeah. What have you got to say about Graceland?
Well, I was a massive Simon and Garfunkel fan, and when I got married, Rowena was a big fan of Paul Simon. In fact, we went to see him live on the Rhythm of the Saints tour, which was not a great tour and wasn't a great album. It was. I mean, it was all right, but it was nothing special. But she loved the first, There Goes Rhyming Simon, and was it the one with American Tune on, whatever, the early stuff, and it was
Still Crazy. No, Paul Simon, the album.
And I think I've got Still Crazy as well, but I think
There Goes Rhyming Simon. Yeah,
I think for an artist like Paul Simon, then he's had two careers. He's had the Simon and Garfunkel career, and then he's had the Paul Simon career. And I don't think that anybody, certainly anybody in their right mind, would look at Paul Simon's output across his solo career and say anything other than the fact that Graceland is his towering achievement. You're probably now going to get a million messages saying, don't talk rubbish, it was X, Y, or Z. And that's people's personal opinion, but they're wrong. Graceland is... What I love about Graceland is that at the time it was quite different. It's a sort of like a concept album. Everything, although the songs are different, they kind of hang together. The whole feel of the album feels like it's kind of Paul Simon, but kind of world music-y, which I guess was where then it led to Rhythm of the Saints. And it's just got some absolutely brilliant tracks. I mean, Graceland itself, I love The Boy in the Bubble. I love Diamonds on the Soles of Your Shoes is, I think, is the best track.
Yeah.
You Can Call Me Al, that was a big single, wasn't it? Great song. Under African Skies, That Was Your Mother. The whole album is brilliant. But I just think, they're my favourite tracks off it.
And I was amazed to see that You Can Call Me Al. I thought that would have been a number one in the States, but looking at the stats, you got to number 4 here, which is probably best.
It was bigger here, wasn't it?
Yeah, number 4, but 23 in the States. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a hit, obviously.
Of course.
Graceland itself wasn't a hit over here as a single. It made 98, so technically that isn't a hit. It has to get into 75. Even the US was only 81. Boy in the Bubble was bigger here than the States, 26 to 86. Diamonds in the Soles of Shoes wasn't a hit in the States. It's either wasn't a hit or wasn't released as a single. I don't know. and same with Under African Skies. It didn't make a chart in either side of the pond. Diamonds made 77 over here, which again isn't technically
But
a hit.
do you think,
He
for
doesn't care.
me, well, no, he doesn't care. Of course, he doesn't, because he's produced this magnificent album. But
Yeah.
it was 1986, and 1986 was at the peak of kind of 80s electronic, that whole electronic pop sound. I think it was just an album out of time, and that the people
Agreed, yeah.
who bought it were Simon and Garfunkel and Paul Simon fans, and they probably liked James Taylor and Carole King and all of the singer-songwriters that we grew up with. But then I think over time, people, they revised it and listened to it and realised what an absolutely brilliant album it was. And then Diamonds on the Soles of Your Shoes is a classic example of that. It's an absolutely brilliant song. And when you listen to it, you just think that's so clever. It's so well constructed. It's such a good song. But is it something which in the 80s would grab the charts when people were listening to Tubeway Army and Adam Ant and all of that stuff? No.
And
So
Duran Duran.
and Duran, and you can understand it. It's not the exact antithesis, but it pretty well is of all of that kind of music.
Well,
So
definitely, yeah. I mean, it as you say, it was a completely different sound for him.
yeah,
Apparently, he got fascinated by a bootleg cassette he found or he was given of some South African street music.
yeah,
So he
that's right.
obviously encompassed a lot of that. So he intruded into, which is the amazing thing. And it was Ags Connolly who was on the show many weeks ago now. One of his Desert Island albums. I think he had Graceland as well. He said it was incredible how he sort of intruded into another culture, another sound of music, South African music. But I mean, he pulled it off magnificently, didn't he? Really?
Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And what's really interesting to me was that I was lucky enough to land tickets for the 25th anniversary gig at Hyde Park, so Hyde Park Calling,
Right.
which he headlined and did the whole of Graceland, and he had Jimmy Cliff playing with him.
Nice.
It was an absolutely brilliant show, and the audience was rammed. I mean, I don't know how many the audience is supposed to be for Hyde Park, but I bet it was more than it was supposed to be, because there were people jammed in left, right, and centre.
Was Queenie there?
Who?
Queenie
Don't
lives next door.
don't think she was. No, I spotted Prince Andrew sneaking around, but that could have been for other reasons.
That's another story. Yeah.
A completely different story. No, seriously, it was absolutely brilliant. And as I say, he played the whole thing front to back, and it was just wonderful. It was like hearing a piece of glorious music history done live by the guy that wrote it. And then you go back and listen to it again. You just think this was such a good album.
A few special guests on the album as well. I noticed on Graceland itself, the Everly Brothers were on.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, on backing vocals, and taking dual lead vocal on Under African Skies was, and this isn't the only reason I like the album, Linda Ronstadt.
But she would be a very good reason to like most things. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah.
We do like Linda.
It was a #1 in the UK. It was a #3, the album, in the US from '86. Graceland, Paul Simon. Okay. That's that one done.
We've done the two that we think we probably have chosen the same, and now
There might be another one, but we'll come on to that, I suppose, at some point.
So go on then. What's your first one?
All right. My first one, I'm going to swap my papers around. We've done Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Oh, this is one you probably would think I would have, and you may well have it too. In fact, I probably had this in my 1969 albums. So I had to. It'd be rude not to include it in this as a G album. The second of 3 albums this band released in that year.
You're talking Creedence, and
I'm talking Creedence Clearwater Revival,
Yeah.
and the second album, which begins with G, which is probably a giveaway.
Hang on, wait a minute, because I'm not. I like Creedence, but I'm not a huge fan. Is it
Two words.
Green
One of
River?
them's a colour. Yeah,
Yeah.
Green River. Yeah.
Green River. Yeah.
Yeah. I was say green. I was going to say like it's the opposite of blue
It's the opposite.
or something like that.
Don't go down that route. You're only allowed to do that in chart shows. You're not
Yeah.
allowed
Okay.
to do
I'll
any
bear that
other
in mind. We
show.
have to do another chart show again. Always good fun.
We must just
Right. So it was their third album, but the second album released in '69, and I mean, I just love Creedence, and I love John Fogerty and his writing, his compositions. I think they're great. Swamp rock, a lot of it was, or the
great.
country rock,
Yeah.
and some of my favourite songs from the year were included on it. Green River itself,
Yeah.
and Bad Moon Rising.
Great song.
And Lodi. I love Lodi as well. I think it's a B-side of Bad Moon Rising. But even
Right.
B-sides make the charts in the States, don't they? Because of the radio airplay that gets incorporated into it as well. So you
No
don't
idea.
have to. Although now, yeah, they have done that over years. But I mean, nowadays, of course, the same sort of thing happens. You get streams when they're not really listening. I mean, if we buy an album, if everyone buys the same album and they play a track number 11, then it's going to make the singles chart.
When you say streams, you're not talking about the opposite of rivers.
No, I'm not. No, that would be silly.
No, I still want to check that out.
No, talking of streams, we don't want that stream from earlier on today as well, which is another story.
No, don't go down that route.
No.
I do not need another 7 o'clock awakening. If that happens tomorrow, I'm going to start rushing to the doctors. Anyway, don't go down that route.
I wonder why you weren't in at 8. I think, he's still having a pee. Right, okay. Yeah, some great songs on that. Other than those three, obviously, on Commotion, which is like a metaphor for social and political unrest in the States at the time, which of course there was, as we know.
Very much so. Yeah.
Wrote a song for everyone, which is a nice song about his failing marriage, reportedly. There's a Ray Charles cover on there. The night time is the right time, and I don't know, Cross Tie Walker. What else is there? And basically, I think they just come across that way, and I think they were just 4 guys performing live in the studio.
Yeah.
There's no sort of special effects or anything, and I kind of like that about records and artists.
Oh, and that's the
like
big
new wave.
argument. But that's the big argument about vinyl versus CD as well, because vinyl, when you listen to it, it sounds like you listen to the music in the room. If you listen to something like that, or like Neil Young, Tonight's the Night, and that era Neil Young, it just sounds like they've stood in a room, plugged in, played, and someone's taped it and shoved it out on record. It's very immediate, it's very raw, it's very live. It doesn't feel overproduced. I think it's terrific. And you're right, Creedence are very much like that.
I think they're a great band. Number 1 album in the States, just number 20 over here. But they did have the only number 1 single either side of the pond with Bad Moon Rising, which I only got to know really properly in the late 70s, probably, when I watched American Werewolf in London. I don't know if you've seen that film, but like the transformation scene, they got Bad Moon Rising playing in the background. Right. Speed it up, they often are, but
Yeah.
Anyway, Green River CCR for me.
Okay,
one that I haven't got.
Well, for my first one, I'm going for a 2014 album.
Good grief!
And this is the album that I used to. I have this role which I thoroughly enjoy as being the bad uncle. I like being the bad uncle. It's kind of me and my Bond villain guys. And this album I bought for Jazzy Jeff's eldest son, James, in order to corrupt him. The album is Going to Hell by the Pretty Reckless, which, as you know, having had their first album as my debut album this week, I am a very, very massive fan of the Pretty Reckless. And
And Taylor Momsen up front.
And well, I remember. Okay, no, I am not that shallow. I liked the Pretty Reckless before I realised that Taylor Momsen was Taylor Momsen, and I will die on that hill as well. So I'm just pulling up the lyrics because I actually saved them for one.
While you're doing that, you are that shallow. I'd just like to say.
No, I'm sorry. That is a gross calumny, and I'm not having any of it. I am not that shallow, but she is very lovely. Anyway, I like all four of their albums, but I think this is the best one. So it's got 3 singles, Follow Me Down, which I particularly like because it's the opening track and it starts with her sounding like she's having an orgasm. That goes into, I may choose that tomorrow.
That'll wake everyone up.
That's what I thought.
Wake up and smell the coffee. Meg Ryan.
Better than waking up to me having a pee anyway. So Follow Me Down, followed by Going to Hell itself, the track, and then the one which is the anthem. And if you remember, I think it's what they did as their final number when we saw them supporting AC/DC, and that's Heaven Knows. But as you know, I'm a big fan of those songs where they've got a bit of a chant going, a bit of a clap. You could wave your hands in the air, you can stomp along. Heaven Knows is absolutely that song. It's a bloody great rock song, and it was a really good single. But then I'll pick out 2 other songs. There's what I like about the Pretty Reckless and what I like about her is that she's really feisty. She's quite sensitive. When you listen to her being interviewed and things, she's a real thinker, but they're also quite angry, and they kind of have songs which have got kind of like a anti-establishment social kind of thing going on. So there's a track called Fucked Up World, which I like very much. But apart from the 3 singles, my favorite one is a song called Why'd You Bring a Shotgun to the Party? Now, bearing in mind, this is America. So let me do the opening lyrics. And the actual refrain, which has got that in, I think is really clever. So, alone, afraid, the kid your mother made, sitting in your room, drooling like a loser with all this doom. You think, then you start to drink, and you get so paranoid with all the drugs they fill you with, and then boom. Does it make you feel like a man? It's not the size we understand. You think you're going to get with me. You're never going to get with me. You're never going to dance with me. I admit I feel I like you like shit. I don't go round and take it out on everyone about. We're all part of the system. You want to start a war. You think that anyone would listen. And then the refrain. Why'd you bring a shotgun to the party? Everybody's got one. There's nothing new about it. You want to make a statement. You should have come without it. Turn the TV on and watch it if you dare. And I just think as a refrain, that's really, really clever. Okay. Yeah. You want to make a statement. You should have come without it. And it's this whole gun culture thing, you know, turn up at a party, you're on drugs, you shoot everybody there, make the news. So it's a real social comment song. And I love their anger, but they're just really good rock musicians. All the musicians are all great. She's a really good writer, and she's a fantastic lead singer. And I absolutely love that album. I play it a real lot. Big Pretty Reckless fan.
Well, we saw them supporting AC/DC last year, did we not, at Wembley Stadium? And the sound wasn't great, I didn't think. Did you think?
No, the sound wasn't great, but also I don't think it helped where we were sat. That was part of that was where they'd moved us to. But no, you're right. But the sound with AC/DC, it didn't matter because they're so loud anyway, and it's basically just a bunch of riffs, and you can never hear.
You never hear what Brian Johnson was singing
at all. So he may as well not have been there. But with them, I think the words are important, and that they're much better in a small club environment than they are in a big stadium. But
Taylor Momsen, correct me if I'm wrong, was in the Grinch film.
The Grinch that Stole Christmas. She was. Was it Lucy? No, what was her name?
I don't know. I've not seen the film.
Her name's something Who. Anyway, she's the little girl, and she's very good. I mean, I can't stand Jim Carrey, so I kind of avoided the Grinch, but I eventually ended up seeing it by accident, and she's very good in it. But Yeah. She's another one of those child actresses who became a rock star because Diana Rain, the guitarist, was in Home Alone 1, was one of the kids in that. So there seems to be a bit of a thing where child actresses become rock stars.
Interesting. Okay.
There we
That's another topic for another day.
go.
Child actors that became
Child
singers.
actors became singers, yeah.
All right. Okay. The Pretty Reckless and Going to Hell. I'm going to throw one in then. Another one that wouldn't necessarily surprise you. This is from '77. It is from, although I've got a few punky, new wavy ones in, this isn't one, but it came out in that era. It was his third album, and it is, and I'll just say 2 words, and you'll probably get it, and it's not the title, although ironically it is. Welsh Wizard.
Welsh Wizard.
Welsh Wizard on the guitar.
Oh, Dave Edmunds.
Dave Edmondson actually said the song title. Get it? Get it? It's the song title, which is a bit weird.
Oh, right. I don't know.
I said you won't get it, and that's not the song. Well, it is the song title. That's weird. Yeah, it didn't do very well over here. I mean, but oddly, and you can make it look like you had a hit in the States by saying it made number 9 in the Bubbling Under chart. But effectively that means it got to 209.
Oh, and it also
Billboard
means
200, isn't it?
Also means there were 8 things better that were bubbling under than it was.
But it's a great album. I love Dave Evans. I love his guitar work.
I
and
know
I love
you do.
Rockpile.
Yeah, no, and he's a really good guitarist.
Came out in April '77. It was his third album, his first solo album. Some of the songs are actually performed by an earlier trio of Rockpile, which would be Dave Evans, Nick Lowe, and John Williams. I think it would have been in those days. Not the Star Wars composer or anything, but that would presumably be the drummer. Yeah, one of the tracks, My Baby Left Me, was recorded in '69 by some of the Love Sculpture members, which again, would include Terry Williams, who's the drummer in Rockpile, and John Williams. So maybe
wasn't
he wasn't
Terry Williams. Terry Williams was also in Man, wasn't he?
He was also in Dire Straits.
Yes, and in Dire
Straits.
Yeah.
And Mickey G was also on it as well. That would be My Baby Left Me. The New York Times called the album, bearing in mind, it got to number 9 in the Bubbling Under chart. So obviously a classic. They called it a compendium of rock styles all the way back to rockabilly. And there are some rockabilly things on there. And there was a couple of singles. One was actually a hit and got them on top of the pops. It got to number 26, which is a Nick Lowe song, I Knew the Bride. Love that tune. Yeah. I Knew the Bride when she used to rock and roll.
That's a good song. That is a good song. It is.
And there are a few other originals on there. Here Comes the Weekend, which is a Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds song. I play that sometimes on a Friday in the show. Worn Out Suits, Brand New Pockets is another Edmunds song. What Did I Do Last Night is a Nick Lowe, and Little Darling, which was the two of them again. The other, I suppose, more well-known songs are Get Out of Denver, which opened the album. It was a Bob Seger song. Real rocking version.
Well, Get Out of Denver is the high point of the Bob Seger Live at the Silverdome album. That's one of the great live albums, and Get Out of Denver is absolutely brilliant on it.
I'm not sure it's possible. I said this about Chuck Berry the other day. It's not very easy to do a bad Chuck Berry cover. I was thinking Get Out of Denver. You can't really ruin that, can you?
Well, I mean, I'm sure. Well, Limp Bizkit would ruin it, wouldn't they?
Oh, perhaps. You say that. I've got another request for Limp Bizkit tomorrow, and it's nowhere near
as
like the one from today. I mean, it was the screaming bit that threw me. Oh, no, I forgot what it is now. It was a cover of George Michael's Faith this morning on the radio.
It was awful.
Which, got a lot of responses to that, actually.
Yeah, probably
not
none of them positive.
Favourable. No, none of them favourable. I think it's another cover, but it's a cover of the Who song Behind Blue Eyes.
All right. Okay.
Which was
I shall listen with interest. Hopefully it won't be when I'm in meetings.
It's a straight cover, to be fair. What else is there? Oh, there's an old Back to School Days, which is a Graham Parker tune on The Howling Wind album, his debut album.
Yeah.
Where or When could have been released as a single, actually. I think it was, but he didn't get anywhere. It's like a Richard Rodgers tune from way back when. And Let's Talk About Us, Otis Blackwell's song, and Hank Williams' song, again more rockabilly with Hey, Good Looking. Get It is the name of the album, and that's my
Okay.
next one for you.
Well, I'm going now with one of my two cheat albums. It's the only reason it's a cheat is because I'm going with the colloquial title for the album. So the album is 1977, and it is by Dickie Betts of Allman Brothers fame. But post Allman's, or post kind of the original lineup after they'd recorded Win, Lose and Draw, which was also 1977, he formed a band called Great Southern. And the album is colloquially referred to as Great Southern.
Great Southern,
because
I guess that.
It doesn't actually have a title. It's Dickie Betts' Great Southern, and it's their first album. But it's referred to colloquially as Great Southern. So I'm having it, because it's a great album.
All right.
As you can imagine, it's
Keep your hair on. Keep your hair on.
I'm just saying.
No.
As you can imagine, it being Dickie Betts, there's a lot of slide guitar, which is fantastic. The whole album I love. It's one of those ones where I bought it on a whim because I thought, well, I love the Allmans and I'll just see what this is like. And I shoved it on the turntable and I played it through the first time. And when I played it the second time, all of the tracks had grown on me. And I play it quite regularly now, and I absolutely love it. I guess there's on side one, there is the opening track, Run Gypsy Run, which is a really good song. And then Sweet Virginia, which has got a real kind of Southern America, Southern states kind of feel to it. It's very lilting, quite soft, quite ballady. It's a really nice song. Side two, again, 3 tracks in particular, one called Nothing You Can Do, California Blues, which not unsurprisingly is kind of bluesy. But then I think the outstanding track on the whole
Southern.
album. So you are.
And Southern.
Yes, indeed.
California Blues,
For me, the outstanding track on the album is the last one, Bougainvillea, which obviously is a plant or flower that grows in that neck of the woods. And it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful song. And I just think when you look at the band, and I mean, Dickie Betts was a genius. And you look at the musicians he got around him, it's just it's one of those albums where you can stick it on and there's nothing on it that's offensive. Anybody who listened to it go, yeah, that's okay. But if you grew up with the Allmans like we did, then it's just kind of, it's the natural move on, in the same way that Greg Allman did Laid Back, which you did the other week on the show, and then Blowing Up a Storm. It's kind of that very Southern blues oriented, slide guitar-y, piano-y kind of sound. Okay. And I love it. It's a great album. So I'm having that as my cheat.
I'll allow that. How many of the Allman Brothers, well, not the Allman Brothers, but the Allman Brothers bands are left, still alive? Are there many?
Jimo, the drummer.
The reason I ask, actually, is because before you even answer the question, I just noticed a headline here saying Allman Brothers set to reunite for an early 2025 global tour with new music release. What's all that about?
You've got Butch Trucks. Butch Trucks was in the original band. Derek Trucks plays in the Allman Brothers, but he plays guitar. Butch Trucks was the drummer, wasn't he? He was the other drummer. They had 2 drummers. That was what was unique about the Allmans. But Berry Oakley's dead, so I don't know who replaced him. Greg Allman's dead. Duane Allman's dead. And Dickie Betts is dead. So no, it will be Jimo plus whoever whoever carried the mantle. But it's basically the Trucks family, and maybe Susan Tedeschi is in it as well, because the Tedeschi Trucks band were kind of an offshoot, weren't they?
That's unfortunate. Didn't Dwayne Allman drive into a truck or something on his motorbike? Didn't
Yes.
he?
He drove into a
It
peach
wasn't theirs,
lorry.
I hope.
No, he drove into a peach lorry. That's why the album was called Eat a Peach.
Eat a peach, right? That's it. Okay.
Anyway, Great Southern.
All right, Great
Good
Southern.
album.
I'm unfamiliar with it. I suppose you're going to request some of those tomorrow, maybe.
I am indeed.
Right. Okay. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. on CBW Radio, UK time. An hour later over in the Eastern Daylight Time, so it'll start at 4 a.m. EDT. Okay, my next one. I said I've got a few punky new wave ones. I've got a couple that have sent me. Barbie sent me some couple of G albums. Neil sent me a few G albums. But I'm not going to list them yet because some of them might be in ours. I'll just list them at the end.
Yeah.
This is a band that this was their third album, came out in 1981, April 1981. And, well, I could say the name of the album. I'm not sure whether you'll get it. 3 words. Well, the album is 3 words and the band is 3 words as well. And they come from Northern Ireland.
Okay. The Boomtown Rats.
No, they're Southern Ireland. But the
no, we always get this wrong. No, okay. Right. No, I don't. Because I
tell you what, this will be not a bad clue. Not a bad clue. Their first record label, independent record label, for their first single, which was called Suspect Device, which was a brilliant single. Didn't get anywhere.
Was that about bombs?
It might have been in Northern Ireland and the troubles over there.
Reasonable.
But the label, ironically, was called Rigid Digits.
Oh, stiff little fingers.
Little fingers. There you go. So it wasn't a bad clue, was it?
Yeah, no, that was a good clue. I had no idea they were Northern Irish. So.
Yeah, they're Northern Ireland. They sung about the troubles in Northern Ireland all the time.
Well, they might have done, but I'm not being
the
a fan.
Undertones didn't. The Undertones didn't. They had a bit of a turf war between them. I think they thought they were just singing it to, making money out of the troubles over there. A couple of singles on it. Just Fade Away, which was a number 47 hit. Not sure they appeared on Top of the Pops. Another single called Silver Lining. I mean, Jake Burns, who's the lead vocalist, he's quite angry on his first couple of albums, as you can imagine, with the subject matter, talking about bombs and soldiers and hand grenades and going off to the army and thinking you've only got 3 years to go, but they had another 2, and you've got 5 years to go before you're out. His voice was a lot smoother, less anguished, I think. Although there's still some great catchy tunes on it. Nobody's Hero, that was a hit single. Nobody's Hero was on the previous album. What am I talking about? They're Jake Burns and Gordon Ogilvie, who wrote, I think could have been the lyricist. And they did some cover of Roots, Radicals, Rockers, and Reggae. In fact, that opened the album, which was like a punky reggae tune. You like a bit of punky reggae, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Bunny Wailer tune that they did.
Okay.
The last track I think, is brilliant. Piccadilly Circus, talking about his mate going off, akin almost to Rod Stewart's Killing of Georgie, where he had a gay, in that case, friend who went off to New York, and he got set upon, didn't he? Similarly to this friend of his from Northern Ireland who went off to, and it was called Piccadilly Circus. So he put it. I've actually got, since you've given us a lyric, he put his fingers to his side and felt his flesh was open wide. He felt the rent the blow had made, for the hand that fell had held a blade. Who can make some sense of that? So he flies back home to safety in Belfast. And the refrain at the end, never knew him, tried to kill him. Hits and Misses is another one, which is sort of highlighting the, I don't know, the domestic violence, maybe, and male dominance generally. I think that's what they were singing about. It's called Hits and Misses, as I may have said. So the unpredictability of relationships, love and kisses was one of the lines from it. Cruelty and pain moments, Yours in Hell, another lyric from it. And um, how women are expected to fit certain roles, so depicted in ads and beauty pageants, and reinforcing stereotypes and expectations. You know the score, and this male dominant figure who's maybe beat up on his girlfriend is
No.
someone maybe that we all know is not necessarily a psycho killer. So I've one more lyric, then you can go on to yours. See him walk down my street. The woman fears and hears her feet. Hears his feet. If his team lost, then she gets beat. Neighbours slag, go back to chatter. Just a man who's on the batter. Then he gets his legal way on just another Saturday. Gate 49 is a nice, catchy, almost country song. Gate 49 was the gate at Heathrow Airport that went to Belfast, believe it or not. Well,
Yes.
you went through that to get to Belfast. The
At
album's
Terminal 1.
Go For It, I think I may have said. I
Yep.
suppose you've been to Belfast. Have you been everywhere?
My very, very, very first consulting job when I joined my little firm in 1978, at the
Yes.
beginning of 1979, was at DeLorean's in Belfast.
Oh, I think you've told me that before,
I did,
actually.
and I stayed in the Europa Lodge, the most bombed hotel in the world at the time.
Nice. You wouldn't want to go back there then, would you, really?
I can't say my mum was. I can't say my mum was too pleased. But
No. Well, you could go back there, actually, in a DeLorean. But that's another story.
Was it Back to the Future or Future to the Back? Anyway, something like that. You know what I mean.
Something like that. I know you'd never seen it for some bizarre reason. Go on, what's your next one?
Okay, so the next one, there's a bit of a story with this one from me, because this is a band that I love and I've got loads of their stuff. But this is the album which always flew under the radar, and I always kind of thought it was a throwaway. It was the weak album of the albums, you know, that they produced. And
can I guess?
Then well, you can, but you'll guess wrong.
Oh, okay.
No, go on, guess.
I was going to go for the one for some reason.
Well, I'm going to talk about that later, but no.
Okay.
So that is on my list, obviously.
Yeah.
No, so this is released in 1980. And again, an album by then out of time. But, well, here's the people who play on it. Okay. So on drums, variously, Rick Marotta, Steve Gadd, Jeff Porcaro from Toto. On bass, Chuck Rainey, Anthony Jackson. On guitars, Mark Knopfler, Hugh McCracken, and Rick Derringer. On horns, Michael Brecker. And on keys, Joe Sample, who I can't remember whether he was Weather Report or Return to Forever, one or the other. And then the two band members, who are Donald Fagen and Walter Becker.
So this, G album, Steely Dan, Gaucho,
yeah. And now I always thought, in my mind, Gaucho was the
Forgotten Marx brother.
Yeah, very good. Go to the top of the class for that one. Yeah, excellent. But then when you listen to it, I think this is the album where they fell out, because Donald Fagen is so anally retentive about the production that they were playing single phrases multiple times until they got it right. And in the end, everybody lost the will to live. I may be wrong, but I think it was this album. But when you listen to it, it's got some absolutely brilliant songs. And then I looked at the Greatest Hits album, which I've got several of. And three of them are on the Greatest Hits album. So I thought, I might have to rearrange my thinking about that. So the opening track on side one is Babylon Sisters, which is a great song.
Hey 19 must be on the Greatest Hits.
Yeah. Hey 19. Well, Babylon Sisters, Hey 19, and then two off the other side. So Hey 19 is a great song. But the one which is the really undiscovered one on that album, I think, is Glamour Profession, which is the longest track. I didn't choose it because it's the longest track. It's just really clever. It's really well constructed. It's one of those things where you listen to it and it kind of takes you on an oral journey. It's difficult to describe if you haven't heard it, but it's a really, really good track. And then on side two, you got Gaucho, which is all right. It's not anywhere near the best track on the album. I'll come back to Time Out of Mind in a minute. And then you've got Third World Man, which also is the other one on the Greatest Hits album, which again, you know, Steely Dan fans, they go Babylon Sisters and Third World Man would be the two songs that they pick off that album. But Time Out of Mind, it's just an absolutely brilliant piece of music, and it's the one which has got the refrain in it, "Tonight when I chase the dragon." And you know, is that heroin? Is it, you know, what is it? What's it talking about? But for me now, and I've listened to it a couple of times this week, "Time Out of Mind" is the standout track on the album. It's just, and the thing about Steely Dan is they started as basically a rock band, but they very quickly became really jazz. Well, they cover so many different genres in the way they play, and you know, you can argue that stuff off Royal Scam like Haitian Divorce is a pop song, and I guess maybe it is, but I just think Gaucho flies under the radar, and I mean, it's just a stellar lineup of musicians. You know, any one of those guys will get into any band in the world. I know Jeff's a big Chuck Rainey fan, and we haven't done the drum thing yet.
No, we've got to get Wyatt.
I was talking to Wyatt today actually, so I'll see if I can sort that out for later in the year. But I think all of us would have Steve Gadd on there because he's a genius as well. So you know, it's an absolutely brilliant album, and anybody listening, if you don't know it, do yourselves a favour, listen to Time Out of Mind a few times. It's brilliant.
Steve Gadd. He's no relation to Paul Gadd, I hope.
I don't think so.
Isn't that Gary Glitter?
That is Gary Glitter, yes. And having already mentioned Prince Andrew, we should probably move on.
We're on a hat trick. We're on a hat trick. I noticed, having a quick shifty at the track listings here, that one of the they're all obviously Becca Fagan tracks.
Yes, all Becca Fagan.
And I know Jazzy Jeff is a big Donald Fagan fan. I know he loves the Nightfly album.
Yep,
well, as do you. But one track was written by Beckett and Fagan and someone else. And this someone else is, you know the answer to this, do you?
Well, no, I did notice that there was another person who wrote it.
One of the classic jazz keyboardists.
Right.
Keith Jarrett.
Yes, Keith Jarrett. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okie doke. So, Gaucho, Steely Dan. What shall I have next? All right, I'll have this one. This is an album, 21st Century, which, you know, for me, isn't bad.
Very good.
This is from 2001. And I think, hand on heart, I would say this is probably my favourite album of that year to come out.
Right.
It came out around 9/11. Actually, it came out on 9/25 to be precise. So obviously, all of the songs would have been written beforehand and recorded beforehand. And the cover of this individual artist it's him posing in jean, not Bruce Springsteen, but it almost looks.
I know who this is. This is the bloke that blocked you on Twitter.
It's the bloke that blocked me on Twitter. That doesn't narrow it down too much, probably over the years.
No, I can never remember.
It's not Mick Hucknall. It's Ryan Adams.
I can never remember who it is, but I know I can picture the album in my mind.
Yes, it's Ryan Adams.
Ryan Adams, yes.
Ryan Adams, who
what's the album called then?
Gold.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty G-ish.
That's pretty G-ish.
It's very G.
That's so G-ish. It's nearly H, but not quite. And H is a good one that we'll come on to.
Gold.
Yes, it is gold. Yeah. No, this is gold, and the pose on the cover without the baseball cap in his back pocket, is akin to that. It certainly is his best-selling album.
Right.
The UK, no, in the US alone, it sold 364,000 copies, 810,000 worldwide. The opening track sort of got lumped in with the in the aftermath of 9/11, and it was called New York, New York, and it has not helped, or it wasn't helped the fact that it got lumped in because the video was recorded, and it said at the start of the video for New York, New York, it was recorded basically all under him under playing the guitar under the Brooklyn Bridge, I think it was, and the Twin Towers are in view, and it makes a start. It does say at the start of the video, this video was recorded on the 9/7. So what? 4 days before 9/11.
Yeah.
So the World Trade Center is in the background pretty much the whole time. And it's a great song. If you've not, have you listened to this album? I should have given to this album to have a listen to at some point.
You gave me another one to listen to, which I did listen to, which we'll come to later.
All right, okay. Answering Bell was another great song, and he had Adam Duritz from the Counting Crows on backing vocals within there. He actually asked, funnily enough, he asked Bryan Adams to appear in the video for this particular single, Answering Bell, but he declined. Maybe that's why they didn't get on. And not only the fact that people get fed up with people calling him, Bryan Adams getting fed up with people calling him Brian when he isn't Brian. But I mean, there's just so many great tracks on. La Cienega got Just Smiled. The Rescue Blues is a great bluesy song. When the Stars Go Blue, very softer, a softer, uh, delicate song, I would say. When the Stars Go Blue, and Nobody Girl, which allegedly might have been about his girlfriend at the time, whose name I forget, but she was in Stranger Things as the. I suppose you watch Stranger Things.
No.
The mum. Oh.
So that reference would be lost on me. Not
No, other people who are watching or listening will think, "Oh yeah, I know who that is."
Yeah, they will.
Jackie might even know. Actually,
they
he might watch
watched Stranger Things, but I
What
never
was
did.
her name? I can't think. Nobody Girl anyway. And Sylvia Plath, which was obviously about the poet Sylvia Plath, was such a again very raw, delicate song, Sylvia Plath. And the final track on the album is Goodnight Hollywood Boulevard, which is a great song, was a piano song. There are, I think, 4 extra tracks that come on the CD, but yeah, I'm not including them. But yeah, 59 he got to in the US and 20, so it did better over here. He was championed, which maybe helped his first album, which was called Heartbreaker, which could be an H album for next time, was championed by Elton John. He was on chat shows, and they were asking him what you listen to, and he said Ryan Adams, one of the greatest songwriters, because Elton's got this sort of American accent now, isn't he? He's making some great records, Ryan Adams.
I have no idea. I'll take your word for it.
What, Elton John? We definitely got an American type voice.
I haven't heard Elton John speak for
ages. All right, but cracking album, and I had to include that one. Gold.
Okay. I shall give that a listen.
Off you go.
Right, okay. Time to wheel out the best band in the history of the universe, which
so obviously is going for the one.
Which is obviously yes, and he's going for the one. Now, 1977, I saw them on this tour at the Bingley Hall in Stafford, the Bingley Cowshed. It was a good year, 1977, because I saw them and I saw the Eagles on the Hotel California tour, both at the Bingley Hall. So it was kind of like it was a Rolls Royce of a year. A lot of Yes fans say that. What?
I was going to interrupt you now. Shaggy's just texted me. Winona Ryder was her name.
Winona Ryder. Yes.
You know Winona Ryder, don't you?
I know her face. I could pick her out in a lineup if I was forced by the police. I don't know anything she's ever acted in, but I'll take your word for it.
Stranger Things is one.
Well, yes, but I've never seen it, so obviously that. A lot of Yes fans would say that Close to the Edge is the best Yes album. And if you have that view, then you've got to throw in Fragile, and the Yes album. And so Going for the One comes further down the list. But for those of us in the know who think that Close to the Edge is good, but not their greatest album, then that bumps Going for the One much further up the list. And for me, as a massive Yes fan, I would have it as my second favourite album after the Yes album, above Fragile and above Close to the Edge, in those four in that order. For me, it's a return to form, because Rick Wakeman left after Topographic Oceans, which was awful. And then they did Relayer, which wasn't much better, which had Patrick Moratz on it. And then that was 1975. So it kind of all went quiet then. And then they released Going for the One, and everyone goes, oh, have they gone off and everything? And it's an absolute return to form. Only 5 tracks.
Up your street then.
Yeah, but 2 of them are, Going for the One itself, the opening track, is just a straight out rocker. Parallels, which is the closing track on side 1, is also pretty well a straight up rocker. Turn of the Century, when you listen to Spotify and you listen to music, and at the end of the year they do that wrap of what you've listened to this year.
Yeah.
Right. 2022 and 2023 and 2024, Turn of the Century was in my top 5 listened to songs, and in 2022 it was number 1. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of music. It tells a story very broadly. It's classic Yes. It's got John Anderson's vocals, which you either love or hate. I totally get that. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. And it does the classic Yes thing where in the middle you think, yeah, this is all falling apart because there's now so many different time signatures. I've now got not a clue what's going. And then it's suddenly like they pull the motorcycle back up straight and finish really strong. And that's probably what I will choose for my track from the G albums. Obviously, Wondrous Stories is on the second side. Their biggest hit single, was it number 7 in the UK? I think it got to.
It was top 10, I think. Yeah.
No, I think it was higher than that. I think it was 7. And as Jeff pointed out when you did the One Hit Wonders thing, it is the song that everybody knows, except it isn't, because the other song that everybody knows and the one that gets played much more often is Owner of a Lonely Heart off 90125. Although Owner of a Lonely Heart only got to number 28 in the UK, but it went to number 1 in the States.
In the States, yeah.
Which Wondrous Stories didn't. So I think it is a great single. For me, it's a classic rock single. It's very radio friendly. It was them saying, we're going to make an effort to do something which is radio friendly. And then that then went on in that stuff that came out in the 80s with the Buggles and all that stuff. The standout track on the album, apart from Turn of the Century, is Awaken, which is 15 and a half minutes, but it's a piece. And again, as a massive Rick Wakeman fan, I think it's his finest hour in Yes. It's not his finest hour because obviously he had his 3 solo albums, all of which are brilliant. But as the keyboard player in Yes, and he talks about it a lot. When that interview I was telling you about that I watched on YouTube, he talks about the recording of this, and it was really interesting because he recorded. It's basically done on the church organ. And it was recorded at St. Martin's Church in Vevey in Switzerland live. And then it was fed into the music that was being created in the studio from the church. And I'm not quite sure how it worked technically, but it was really interesting to listen to him being interviewed about how he did it. But for him, this is obviously his favourite piece of Yes music as well. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of music. And a lot of Yes fans would have Awaken in their top 2 or 3 greatest Yes songs. But I'm going to choose Turn of the Century because that is beautiful.
and it's a little bit shorter than Awaken.
It's about 6.5, 7 minutes, I think.
Yeah, half the time. Okay, going for the one. Well, I guess you're always going to have a yes. Sadly, I can't counter that. I can't
Yes,
raise you a
I
Beatles
did look
album.
to see if there was a Beatles, a John Lennon, a Ringo, or a Paul McCartney, or a George Harrison, and there isn't.
Well, actually, there is, because I'm going to
Oh,
give you my next one since you just mentioned them. I'm going to give you a Ringo album
really?
because, yeah,
Oh,
he did two good albums, I would say. The first one, classic album, was Ringo, came out in '73, had
yeah,
at least a couple of number one singles in the States, at least, with You're 16 and Photograph, the song he did with George Harrison.
yeah.
And Oh My, I think was a big hit over there too. There's a number of good songs on that. And if you haven't got a Beatles album, and the next best thing would be get Ringo by Ringo Starr because he's got all of them on it on different
Various
tracks,
bits.
basically.
Yeah.
And he tried to follow the same path with his next album, which was called two words. Second word is a European capital city in a neighbouring country to Germany, beginning with A.
Austria, Vienna.
And the first word being, you can probably guess.
Goodbye,
Good
Vienna.
night. Good night, Vienna. Yeah,
Oh,
Good
good
Night,
night.
Vienna. Came out in November '74 as his fourth studio album, using the same players, if you like, as on Ringo. Usual suspects: Billy Preston, Klaus Voormann, Robbie Robertson, Harry Nilsson, John Lennon, and Dr. John. Richard Perry was the producer. Um, Ringo asked John Lennon to write him a song while he was doing his own Walls and Bridges album. This is John Lennon in '74 to write him a song for the next album, which he did, which was Goodnight Vienna, the title track. And he also suggested him covering the Platters song, Only You and You Alone, as you will know that song. So he sent him a guide vocal on a demo with him and acoustic guitar, and he released that as a single. That was a hit in the States, #6, top 30 over here. Goodnight Vienna was a top 40 hit over there in the States. Harry Nilsson was on backing vocals on that. Elton John and Bernie Taupin wrote Snookeroo for him. Elton John is on it as well, playing the piano, and you can hear him count the song in 1, 2, 3, 4. See, he can count.
That's
I
good.
don't know whether that was an American accent. It could have been, not sure. And there's a Hoyt Axton song, No No Song, as well, which I think was a double A side with Snookeroo. But there are a few other songs on there as well. Harry Nilsson gave him a song, which for the life of me I can't remember. But yeah, it's a good album. And other members on the band on the album, other personnel, sorry, Steve Cropper. Nicky Hopkins is on there. Bobby Keys on the horns.
Indeed.
And Madeline Bell on
Ah,
backing
great,
vocals.
great voice.
And another one down here I've got is May Pang on backing vocals. And I think wasn't that his girlfriend after Yoko Ono? Her claim to fame is they could probably sing better than Yoko Ono. I'm hoping
But
that's not her only claim to fame.
in fairness, a castrated dog could sing better than Yoko Ono.
With someone's
Significantly.
foot on their tail. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly. And a tennis
But
ball stuffed in its mouth.
I don't remember hearing May Pang on it. I don't remember hearing Madeline Bell, but I'm sure she's on there. Good Night, Vienna, Ringo.
Madeline Bell was in Blue Mink, wasn't she?
Yeah, it's not Maggie Bell as in
No, Maggie Bell's Stone the
Stone the
Crows.
Crows. Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, Madeline Bell. Okay, cool.
Okay, let's whiz through
Well,
this last jog.
I didn't know that. So we've got ages
Yeah.
yet. We've got 25 minutes. We'll be fine.
Yeah,
So this next one is my second favourite album by this particular band, released in 1973. And you talked about them in my absence last week. It is Goat's Head Soup by the Rolling Stones.
Well, it's funny you should say that. That's one on my sort of last list of Goat's Head Soup. I thought, shall I include it? And well, no, I'll say what I've got to say after you say what you've got to say about it.
Okay, My favourite Stones album is Beggar's Banquet by some significant distance. And I kind of I knew a few of the tracks off Goat Said Soup, but I've never really paid much attention to it. Gordon said, "Look, I've got a copy of it. Do you want it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll add it to my Stones collection." And I played it when he got it for me, and it was about maybe a year ago. I played it half a dozen times just straight off the bat. And by the end of it, I thought, yeah, this is brilliant. It's one of my favourite albums. It's obviously got the two tracks that everybody knows, Angie, which, is Angie. And then the song which is very much a staple of their live act, which is Star Star, which I absolutely love. But
yes.
particularly side one, Dancing with Mr. D, 100 years ago, Coming Down Again, Do, 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 Heartbreaker.
Okay.
They're all real blues classics. And I don't mean they're classics in terms of being written by classic bluesmen. I just mean that they are very much that Stones sound. And I think for me, when you look then at that whole raft of stuff they did in the 80s and in the 90s, none of which I particularly liked. It was all right, but none of it lit my candle. And it wasn't really until Grrr, which is another G album, and Hackney Diamonds, where just much more recently they've come back to form. They've come back to their blues roots. And so I think for me, Goat Said Soup was their last great album of that classic era. And I just love it. And the more I play it, the more I realise how much I like it.
Well, fun enough, in order to maybe include it on my album list for G, I actually listened to it all today.
Well done.
I know. You don't often get me listen to entire albums, but I thought I'm going to have to listen to this. And to be honest, it didn't really float my boat. It's strange. Like you can be, I mean, Angie, I think is one of my favourite songs ever.
Yeah.
I know I've got many of those, I know, but you know what I mean. Superb. And Star Star is great Stones boogie.
Yeah, it is.
12-bar boogie. The rest, even the do Ron Ron or whatever it's called.
Do.
That's the one. Heartbreaker, which I think is on one of their compilation albums, actually, isn't it? As one of their greatest hits albums. Was it Rewind? It was on. No, I just they sounded to me. Maybe I need to listen to it again. I don't know, but it sounded to me like a lot of fillers to me. So for me, the end of their peak period would have been Exile.
You see that's exactly
the opposite
of what I think. Because when I listen to Exile, which everybody has to own if you're a Stones fan, I think there's a load of filler on Exile. It's another one of those albums.
It's another double, though, isn't it? It's another double, yeah.
Yeah, but it should have been a single album, not a double album. But even if it was a single album, I don't think it's as good as Goat Said Soup. And it's certainly not as good as Beggar's Banquet.
Surely Sticky Fingers you prefer now, or Let It Bleed, any of those?
They're the two of their classic era that I don't own yet.
Oh, right, okay.
I like them, yes, but Goat Said Soup and Beggar's Banquet are the two for me.
There was one track I was listening to, and I thought, yeah, I mean, this one, I could, it's all right. I was kind of surprised that I didn't like the album, because I love Angie and I love Star Star so much. That's just me, though, isn't it? Playing
Dancing with Mr. D.
No, let's open the track. It doesn't grab me. That track to open the album doesn't grab me.
It does. For me, when I listened to it again this week, yesterday or the day before, I thought, this is classic Rolling Stones. This is how the Rolling Stones are supposed to sound. Weird, isn't it? It's the same album.
It is weird. I know it's very strange, but I don't know. It's to do with expectations, or it's just down to the fact that I'm a pretty simple individual, and like a certain style of music.
But those songs,
and they to me don't sound like. No, but they don't to me sound like Stones from the classic Stones period. Classic Rolling Stones, I think, is a bit more rocky. There was one track I liked on side 2. It was called Hide Your Love. I didn't mind that.
Yeah, that's a nice song.
Didn't mind that one. So there were 2 on side 2. and Angie Closeside 1. But up until Angie, like if you hear 2 tracks and you don't like them so much, then maybe it sort of gets in your brain, and then you get another one come up. And think,
Yeah, no, I get that. But
but then
Ghost Said
by
Soup
the time,
does exactly the opposite to me.
okay, fair enough. Well, that's good. It'd be boring if we just agreed on everything, wouldn't it?
It would.
I mean, you can't be right on everything, Pete, as
No,
we know.
nor can you, as you frequently prove.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Right. Go to soup. I won't go. Yeah, I was going to maybe mention. I'll tell you what. Quickly go through this one, um, because I think I may have had this in my 74 list. This is a. How am I doing for time? I haven't got that long, so I'm going to try to whiz through them. This a great singer-songwriter, pianist, but not Elton John and not Billy Joel.
Okay,
Although Glass Houses
that
nearly
narrows it
won
down.
Yeah, it narrows it down. He's American from the South,
Yeah, go on, tell me.
Randy Newman. And
Oh,
the
right.
album is Good Old Boys,
Right.
which came
Yeah,
in
yeah.
September 74. He was his first major commercial success, got to 36 in the album chart. Originally, it was meant to be a concept album about a character called John Cutler, apparently, an everyman of the Deep South. It features a lot of taboo subjects, as Randy Newman songs did back then, such as slavery and racism, and notably on opening track, Rednecks, in fact, which is a satire of both institutional racism and also in the Deep South, and also the sort of hypocrisy of the northern states in response. And yeah, I mean, the first one of the lines is we're rednecks, we don't know our ass from a hole in the ground. So it goes along those lines. Oh, one of my favourites is Birmingham. Birmingham. Uh,
Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama. Yeah, the greatest city in Alabama. Songs about historical events, about the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927. That's on Louisiana, 1927. Performs with the Eagles, or Glenn Fry, Don Henley, and Bernie Leadon, anyway, on Every Man a King. And there are also songs on there that have already been written or recorded by other artists, and a lot of his songs were already recorded by other artists. He gave them away to people.
Yeah.
I mean, Bonnie Raitt recorded "Guilty," for example.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strings as well on a couple of tracks. Marie and Rollin'. Ry Cooder is on guitar. On Back on My Feet Again. And well, yeah. I mean, what else can I say? I don't want to waste too long. Yeah, I've got other lyrics written down. I don't want to bother with those. Right. Good Old Boys is the album I've gone for anyway. Randy Newman.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with, I think, what is regarded by fans of this band, of which I am a massive one of that number, is regarded as their weakest album. And it is sandwiched in between what many would say is their second best album, which came after it, and their double massive selling live album, which was from 1976, as was this album, which is the throwaway, I think.
Is it Skinner?
Yeah, Give Me Back My Bullets.
Give me back my bullets.
It's
Give me 3 steps, but
it's
not
a
right.
pretty average album cover, although you could say that for a lot of their albums. But it's a pretty average album cover. It's got 2 outstanding tracks on it. The title track, Give Me Back My Bullets, which I love, that kind of give me back my bullets. So it's kind of almost, I don't know what the musical term is. It's kind of, it keeps on breaking. Anyway, it's a good song. And then,
would know.
of course he would, because he's a smart ass. And then the other one is Double Trouble, which, again, very often was played in their live set.
Yeah.
There's 3 other tracks on there which I really like. I've got The Same Old Blues. Cry for the Bad Man is a nice song, and that features the backing singers, the Skinettes, quite a lot. And I think that's really good. And then also All I Can Do Is Write About It, which I think is another good song. It's okay. It's Skinner. I love them, and even their bad stuff's better than most people's good stuff. But I think it's probably the weakest of their studio albums, and it's certainly not a patch on the one which followed, which was Survivors. So yeah, there we go. Skinner, easy.
Okay. Well, another album that I've got a couple of albums here that I should include really, but unlike you, in that you're just literally going for ones that you own on vinyl, I assume, maybe on CD as well.
No, vinyl and CD.
Vinyl and CD. There are a couple of theirs. The ones that I own, I would say the other one I would have would be the Clash's second album,
Okay.
which was November '78. Spent ages waiting for the second album. The first one, as I said many times, I'm sure, really loved. Brilliant album, one of the greatest punk albums ever, actually. About 18 months before the second album came along. And it was the first album released in the US. The album's called Give 'Em Enough Rope. It was a number
Yes.
2 album here and a 128 album in the US.
Big seller then.
First album, yeah, but it's way above 9 in the bubbling under chart. Topper Headon was his first appearance as the proper drummer. All Strummer Jones songs, apart from English Civil War, which is a reworking of the American folk song, I guess you call it. And Guns on the Roof, which they all co-wrote. Couple of singles. Tommy Gunn, first single, got to number 19.
Great song.
I was talking about Middle East terrorism, particularly hijacking of aircraft and stuff, and English Civil War itself, which was the second single, to number 25. Safe European Home, classic opening track.
Yeah.
Julie's been working for the Drug Squad. It's a quite nice little ditty. That's apparently commenting on Operation Julie. It was a drug bust which brought this major LSD production world. It sort of dismantled this. What's the word?
Cartel.
Probably, yeah, probably cartel. And that was in Wales. Last Gang in Town, another great song. Stay Free. Mick Jones singing on that one for a pal of his, which he sort of lost touch with, a schoolmate, and they went their separate ways. He went into music, he went into writing different people, and he ended up going to prison, got into trouble with the wrong gang, and yeah, his last line, go easy, step lightly, stay free. That's the name of the track. So Give 'Em Enough Rope, The Clash.
Okay. So I'm going to do the one that I discovered today was a G, and then I'll do my other throwaway at the end.
Yep.
So this one is a 2004 album, which I bought in a branch of Starbucks, that famous American coffee shop.
They're all over the place over here.
They are all over. They were when I was in Kuwait, when I used to go there all the time, there was a joke that there's so many Starbucks in Kuwait that they're now building Starbucks in the car parks of Starbucks. It's well, because they don't have pubs, so everybody goes to the coffee shop like we go to the pub.
Yeah,
So anyway, there's Starbucks everywhere, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's really weird because the coffee's shite. But anyway, there we go. So the album is by Ray Charles, and it is Genius
Loves Company.
Loves Company.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful album.
Yeah.
For those that don't know it, it's a series of duets that he does with other famous people, mostly those people's songs, but sometimes not. So without going through all the songs, I'll mention a couple. But Norah Jones,
Yeah.
James Taylor,
Yep.
Diana Krall,
Mhm.
Elton John, with whom he does Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word, which is an achingly beautiful version. Natalie Cole, Bonnie Raitt, an absolutely fantastic version of It Was a Good Year with Willie Nelson, which is my favourite track on the album. Michael McDonald, one of the great vocalists, B.B. King, Gladys Knight, Johnny Mathis, and Van Morrison.
Oh, you missed out. Maybe there was a Genius Loves Company too. I thought Amy Winehouse was on it.
No, well, I mean, there might have been, but this is.
I think he did. I've seen a video. It was one of the last recordings that
Well,
She did.
it must have been two because
Must have been the second one. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, there isn't. I listened to it tonight when I because I was looking for something to listen to, and I thought, oh, let's try that, and then I went, oh, that begins with G, marvelous. I'll try and include it in the podcast.
Love it when a plan comes together.
I love it when a plan comes together, but it's just there isn't a single, there isn't a Duff song, there isn't a Duff note. It's pretty well perfect, and even people who I'm not massive fans of, like Johnny Mathis and Van Morrison particularly. It's just that they're beautiful songs, and he's just, I mean, he's a genius, isn't he, Ray Charles?
He Fantastic. Is, and he loves company as well.
He does love company.
Yeah, he does love company.
He's a genius who loves company.
He is indeed. Right, I'm going to give a couple now that I don't own, but I know them, but I don't actually physically own them. But I mean, the last time I went out, I actually literally bought a CD. It's amazing, a long time ago. But I think a couple of influential albums that I thought needed to be maybe mentioned, and one of which is a genre, or maybe both genres, of which you would probably not be the greatest fan. If I said Western songs.
What, you mean like Yeehaw, cowboy?
Yeah, I'm talking about cowboy stuff. Yeah,
Yeehaw.
I'm talking Marty Robbins, who's the king of the Western songs. So the album was Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs. Now, All Music called it the single most influential album of Western songs in post-World War II American music. It's always in 1001 albums you should listen to before you die, in all the different editions of it.
I have that on the shelf. I'm looking at it now. I shall dig it out shortly.
See whether it's on there. And
when was it released?
59. It's a long time ago. 59, September 59.
I shall give it.
I mean, a couple of big songs on it. Probably the most well-known was a Big Iron, which is sort of a country ballad, as you can imagine, but it's following the story. Can't even write in it. Following the story of Arizona Rangers' duel with a 24-year-old outlaw called Texas Red. Texas Red, of course, is beaten in the end due to the speed of the Ranger and his big iron gun in his hip. El Paso is another Western ballad as well. It's on it, but I mean, there's a load of quicker tempo, traditional songs on there too. So it might be worth, if you like that kind of thing, you probably would. It's called Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs, and the other one I think is an influential album, and features a couple of previous members of the Byrds. They left the Byrds. They sort of veered the Byrds towards a sort of country rock style.
Did they veered away from the flock and went in a different direction, did they?
They did, although it's spelled with a Y rather than an I, but I know where you're coming from there. I'm talking Graham Parsons and Chris Hillman from the Byrds, and the band of the Flying Burrito Brothers.
They are.
This came out in February '69. Their debut album, Gilded Palace of Sin, is the name of the album. Right. Yeah, it's an album title that you might be familiar with.
I don't know any. What is there a single off it?
There won't be a hit single on it. I mean, Sin City is probably one of the most famous songs on it. Sort of a loping, lamenty kind of songs. And Hot Burritos number 1 and 2, actually. Hot Burrito number 1. I bet if you look, it's a big influence on a number of country artists after it, the Flying Burrito Brothers. So Graham Parsons particularly, and Chris Hillman as well. Dwight Yoakam,
Chris Hillman was
Lucinda Williams.
He was in the Southern Hillman Fury band, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yes.
Yeah, I thought he was. Was that before or after? After.
I think that was after.
Yeah, after. Yeah.
So yeah, big influence on so many artists. Graham Parsons. I went on, I must be some sort of chat board once. I was talking about, and I noticed, I'll have a little chat about favourite artists. And I mentioned, artists that should have been bigger. We've had this maybe theme before. Yeah. And I was talking about Graham Parker. And then someone wrote me back a whole piece all about Graham Parsons. I thought, no, it's not Graham Parsons.
It's a different person.
Parker. But yeah, not going to waffle too long, but at Gilded Palace of Sin, worth a listen to, Flying Burritos Brothers. And you've got another throwaway.
I've got another throwaway, but you said to me you were going to talk about an album that you said I should listen to. And
Well, I thought it would make a change. Just I got an album that, I was going to leave that one till last.
well, okay, leave that to last because I did listen to it and I have comments.
Okay,
So,
go on.
all right. So
Do your next one.
my last one then is my other cheat. Um, it's a compilation, and I guess that you could argue that because it's a compilation, it's greatest hits. But I don't remember some of these being particularly hits. It is Glittering Prizes by Simple Minds, which came out in 1992. Now, when you look at it, Waterfront, Don't You Forget About Me, Alive and Kicking, Sanctify Yourself, Someone Somewhere in Summertime, Promised You a Miracle, all songs that everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's also got two absolutely beautiful songs in it, which I love. Belfast Child, which I just think is, and I don't know if that was a hit. I don't know. I can't remember. But it's an absolutely.
I'll tell you, it was their only UK #1 single.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful song.
It's a good song. Quite long. It's like 5 or 6 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. No, I don't love it because it's long. I just love it.
I know, yeah.
It's a really, really nice piece of music. And then also Mandela Day. Now and again, I don't know whether that was a hit, but
I don't know that was a hit. I don't know.
But it's an absolutely beautiful song, and I like what I like about Simple Minds, and I've got Live in the City of Light as well, which is their Live in Paris album. You know what you're going to get with Simple Minds. If you take Belfast Child and Mandela Day out of the equation, it's that big sound. It's, the chunky guitar, but not kind of rock riffy. It's kind of poppy, but it's rock. It's got a bit of guitar solo. I don't even know why I liked Simple Minds, but I always did. This thing about guilty pleasures, they would be one of my guilty pleasure bands. I've got two of their albums. It's mostly the same songs because what's live and what's on Glittering Prizes is pretty well the same. They're really well produced. They just write bloody good songs, and again, sing along songs you can engage with. Alive and Kicking. It absolutely just jumps out the speakers at you. I thought, well, unapologetically, I'm going to have my cheat and have Glittering Prizes.
All right, okay, fair enough. Funny enough, I don't mind a lot of Simple Minds stuff. A lot of the singles, as you say, Belfast Child, very good song. And a number of the singles that you've mentioned, but overall, they don't pass me by, but they're like almost U2 light to me, a little bit like that in the early days.
They're accused of that, and I understand why, but the guitarist is a lot better guitarist than the Edge, and the singer is equally as good as Bono. So I think it's a little unfair. I like U2, but no, I think they're
right. Come on then. I suggested an album that I've got, and they only had 2 albums actually. The first one, As the Radiators from Space, which was a more aggressive, more punky album.
I didn't realise that was the same band.
Yeah, the same band. They got rid of the From Space and went a different route, and it was a little bit more pop sounding to me, this album, without any hits on it, of course. The first song on the album, Million Dollar Hero, was a single. I remember getting the single as well. In fact, the single has got a little bit of an extra verse before we go to the chorus, which I prefer. But I mean,
it's called Ghost Town.
It's called Ghost Town, yeah.
Yeah,
which is the G album.
Any
views on it?
Well, okay. I'm going to be totally honest with this. I listened to it all, and I enjoyed it.
Blimey.
But is it 11? It's 11 or 12 tracks, isn't it?
Well, I think there's an extra one on the. Yeah, I think it's about 11.
I listened on Spotify. It was on Spotify. I listened on Spotify.
Yeah.
Go with 11 for the sake of argument.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of roundabout song 7, I thought, haven't I heard this before? And I came back in to check that it was playing through the album. And I think that is my quote unquote problem with that kind of music. If you take any one of those songs individually, or one song and then the flip side of it as a single, they're perfectly listenable to, perfectly well constructed, perfectly good pop/rock songs. But to listen to a whole album, for me, it's not different enough to engage me. So I absolutely didn't not like it. I enjoyed what I listened to, but by 6 or 7 songs in, I thought I'm bored now because this all sounds the same. And I think that's why that I don't buy that kind of music.
Okay.
And the other thing was that because it's so upbeat relentlessly all the time, by the end of listening to 11 tracks, I thought I now need to listen to Tangerine Dream.
Oh no,
no, but
you
but
can't
you know
blame
what
the
I mean?
radiators for that.
Because it's so you know what I mean? It's so different, and the Radiators was all kind of like this, and at the end of it, I thought,
Oh,
no, I
yeah.
need to listen to
Was
something
it?
calm
Was
now.
it really? I don't think it really was like that. I mean, there's some quite poppy songs on there as well. I think
Yeah.
there's a few different styles on there. It's only 10 tracks actually on the original album,
Okay.
5 on
Well,
each side.
okay.
And I mean, I think "Song of the Faithful Departed" might have been a song that you might have liked a little bit.
Yes, I think that was the one I think I picked out and thought, yeah, I really like that.
That might have been.
But I'm not, as
That's
I say,
after track 7. You've gone past the point where you wanted to.
I'm not. Let's be clear here. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I quite enjoyed it.
Okay.
I would never have bought it.
No.
And having listened to it, I understand why I wouldn't have bought it, because it wasn't different enough. But I totally get that for the sort of music that you loved, it was very, very good, and certainly preferable to.
I mean, don't get me wrong either. It's not like an album I think is absolutely brilliant. It's just an album I had, and it was a G album, and I do like it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. Your view is all right, basically. I think that's basically.
I've now downloaded it onto my Spotify, so maybe I'll listen to it
Maybe
again.
you listen to it again,
and I'll have a different view when I've heard it 2 or 3 times.
Right, I'm just going to quickly mention these couple. Barbie mentioned a couple of G albums. If I find them, they give me on different. Both self-titled albums by Garbage.
Don't know it.
No Garbage?
No.
You might know. A Stupid Girl was one of their big hits, I think. Stupid Girl. Sort of, oh, that's Brit poppy, I suppose. You probably wouldn't be in favour of it. And Godsmack. Funny enough, was it yesterday or today? Today or tomorrow, I got a request from someone for a Godsmack single, and Neil has given me a few. One I could have met is on my list was "Grace" by Jeff Buckley. You don't know?
I know Jeff Buckley. I don't know the album.
You wouldn't know the album that well. No, I mean, personally, Hallelujah. You've got to pronounce the H.
Well, I mean, that's been done by everybody, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been done by everybody. That's a good version of it. Al Green with "Gets to You." 2 that we've mentioned: "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road," Elton John, and Ryan Adams' "Gold." Alice Cooper, "Goes to Hell."
Okay.
And one that was on my reserve list here: Rod Stewart, "Gasoline Alley."
Forgot about that completely.
And Aerosmith, "Get a Grip." And I don't think you're a great Aerosmith fan, are you?
Aerosmith. No.
No. All right. Okay. So yeah, I think we've done.
We've done the G's.
There's loads more G's I've got on a long list, but I'm not going to bore you with all of those. You might hear some of these tracks from the G albums tomorrow morning if you listen to my radio show on CBW Radio tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I'll be through until 1 p.m. Take off 4 for the US time for that. This podcast will be posted to the usual platforms. Spotify, the main one that people use, in the coming days or over the weekend or whatever, whenever Shaggy can get around to it. And, well, one day we will be on still.
The BBC.
The BBC. Yep.
Auntie.
Big Bang Hole. We'll be on BBC Well, yeah, maybe we won't, but we are trying our best.
We're very
You can see us on the YouTube channel now. What else can you? What else
yes,
can you ask
indeed.
for?
I shall do that very thing.
Right, and let me know your songs for tomorrow. I'll be playing the requests. And well, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening and watching, whatever you're doing.
Good to
And
be back.
thank you, Stinky Pete. All I've got now to say is.